A war thousands of miles away is no longer just a distant conflict. It is quietly but powerfully reshaping the lives of millions across the world, far beyond the battlefield. From Southeast Asia to South Asia to Europe and the United States, the consequences are already unfolding, not in explosions, not in headlines alone, but in something far more dangerous: the cost of survival itself. In the Philippines, the signs are becoming impossible to ignore. What began as a geopolitical conflict has now reached the streets. Citizens are protesting, not against their own government directly, but against the ripple effects of a war happening thousands of miles away. The anger is mixed with fear, because people are beginning to realize that this crisis is not temporary. The government has already warned of an energy emergency. The country depends heavily on imported fuel, much of it coming from the Gulf region. Now, as global supply routes tighten and prices surge, the pressure is building. Authorities are being forced to consider emergency responses, including adjusting work schedules, reducing consumption, and ramping up alternative power sources just to keep the electricity grid stable. But energy is only the beginning, because when fuel prices rise, everything else follows. Transport becomes more expensive, food supply chains slow down, basic goods begin to cost more, and suddenly what started as a distant war becomes a daily struggle. Thousands of miles away in India, the pressure is already visible on the ground. At a gas distribution center on the outskirts of Delhi, long queues are forming. People are waiting, sometimes for hours, sometimes longer, hoping to secure something as basic as a cooking gas cylinder. Liquefied petroleum gas, or LPG, is essential for millions of households. It is not a luxury. It is not optional. It is how families cook their daily meals. But when global supply chains are disrupted, even essentials become uncertain. India, like many countries in Asia, sources a significant portion of its energy needs from the Middle East. And when instability hits that region, the effects travel fast, not in weeks, but in days. Officials are now closely monitoring reserves, not because there is immediate collapse, but because the margin for error is shrinking. And when margins shrink, fear grows. In Pakistan, the situation is even more fragile. An economy already under pressure is now facing another external shock. Rising fuel prices are pushing inflation higher. Transportation costs are increasing. Businesses are struggling to keep up. For small business owners, this is not just about economics anymore. It is about survival. At small shops and delivery services, owners are being forced to make difficult decisions, cutting operations, raising prices, or in some cases, turning away customers altogether, because when costs rise faster than income, something has to give. And often, it is the smallest players who feel it first. Further east, in China, the response looks different, but the underlying pressure is the same. Major cities are once again turning to coal to meet energy demand, not because it is ideal, but because it is available. When oil and gas supplies become uncertain, countries fall back on what they can control, but even that comes with consequences. Air quality deteriorates, environmental goals are pushed aside, and long-term plans are sacrificed for short-term stability. At the same time, Chinese vessels are navigating one of the most critical choke points in the world, the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow stretch of water is responsible for a significant portion of the world's oil supply. Every day, massive volumes of energy pass through it. And now, with tensions rising, every ship that enters that corridor carries not just cargo, but risk, because any disruption there, even temporary, could send shockwaves through global markets. China does have some advantage. It has diversified supply routes. It has access to Russian energy. It has strategic reserves. But even those advantages have limits. Because this is not just about supply anymore. It is about stability. And stability, once shaken, is not easily restored. Zooming out, the picture becomes even clearer. This is no longer just a regional conflict. It is a global economic stress test. Across markets, uncertainty is rising. Energy prices are fluctuating. Shipping costs are increasing as routes become riskier. Insurance premiums for cargo are rising. And businesses around the world are being forced to prepare for scenarios that just months ago seemed unlikely. Governments are not waiting. They are planning for disruption, not a short disruption, but a prolonged one. In the United Kingdom, economists are already adjusting their expectations. Growth forecasts are being downgraded, not dramatically, but enough to signal concern. The country's reliance on imported energy makes it particularly vulnerable. Unlike nations with large domestic production, the UK must absorb global price shocks directly. And when those shocks hit, households feel it almost immediately. Energy bills rise, living costs increase, and the pressure begins to build. Even central banks are now facing difficult decisions. Do they raise interest rates to control inflation or keep them low to support growth? Because in a situation like this, both choices come with consequences. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the United States appears more resilient, at least on the surface. Its economy remains stronger than many others. Its energy production provides a buffer, and its technology sector continues to drive growth. But even here, the cracks are starting to show. Markets are reacting, stocks are fluctuating, bond yields are shifting. Investors are becoming cautious, because no economy, no matter how strong, is completely isolated from global instability. And at the center of this uncertainty is geopolitics. Decisions made behind closed doors, conversations between leaders, negotiations that may never be fully revealed, all of it is shaping what happens next. Donald Trump has recently extended a critical deadline in negotiations with Iran. What was once framed as a firm ultimatum has now become a delay. Officials say talks are ongoing, that progress is being made, that there is still a path forward. But the extension itself tells a different story. It signals uncertainty. It suggests that the situation is more complex than expected. And perhaps most importantly, it shows that even the most powerful actors are looking for an exit. Because escalation is easy, but control is not. Behind the scenes, markets reacted quickly to this development. Stock indices dipped, volatility increased, and speculation began to grow about what comes next. Because in moments like this, perception matters as much as reality. If investors believe the situation could worsen, they act accordingly. And when they act, the effects spread. Currencies move, commodities shift, confidence changes. And suddenly what started as a military conflict becomes a financial one. The deeper question now is not just about how this war will end, it is about what it will leave behind. Because even if a ceasefire is declared tomorrow, and even if tensions ease, even if supply routes reopen, the impact will not simply disappear. Prices once raised rarely fall quickly. Supply chains once disrupted take time to recover, and trust, once shaken, is slow to rebuild. This is the hidden cost of conflict. Not just destruction on the battlefield, but disruption across the entire system, from fuel to food to finance. And for millions of people around the world, the consequences are already here, not in headlines, but in daily life, in the cost of cooking a meal, in the price of filling a tank, in the uncertainty of tomorrow. Because this war is no longer far away. It is already everywhere.